Welcome everybody. In this session, we'll be providing an overview and demo on how to configure Cisco Virtual ASA using Cisco CloudCenter external scripts. This session is brought to you by NetNew. Great. So let's review the agenda of the session. And in this session, basically, we're going to be doing four things. One is quickly review what is the CloudCenter product is and how does it kind of fit in the big scheme of things. Then we're going to basically review what is this use case is about, what is the goal of this use case. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts. This is one of the most exciting part because this is where we're going to tell you that or share with you that what are different steps to get this, to achieve this goal. And then we'll end at that point. Okay, so let's do a quick overview of Cisco CloudCenter and where it fits in the big scheme of things. In traditional data center networks, UCSD takes care of infrastructure orchestration. We usually deploy applications in data centers, but now we have private and public clouds, so we'll need to be able to orchestrate full lifecycle application deployment across different platforms and environments. This is where CloudCenter comes into play. It allows us to create and modular applications and deploy it across multiple clouds, on-prem, private, public, whatever the case is. Okay, so now let's have a look into the four key components of CloudCenter. And as a matter of fact, all of these four key components of the CloudCenter, you're going to be seeing them in action while working through this use case. The first one is the CloudCenter Manager, which is basically a centralized point for any configuration you want to do with your applications. What it allows us to create a cloud-agnostic model for any application, to have full governance and control, one place to monitor wherever your application is deployed, to know who did it, where it is, how much it costs, etc. The second key piece is the orchestrator. So think about it that if you want to deploy any application in any cloud, public, private, whatever the case is, you would need an ambassador there to translate the cloud agnostic blueprint into specific words, terms, APIs, hooks, whatever the requirement of that particular cloud provider is. Now that ambassador is the CloudCenter orchestrator. They'll take that blueprint and deploy it in that specific cloud per its requirements. The third component of the CloudCenter is the repo. So basically, think about it that whenever these scripts gets created, they have to be stored somewhere. And basically, they get stored in the artifact repository. The fourth and final piece of the CloudCenter, or the key piece of the CloudCenter, is the rabbit queuing system, which is basically it's a messaging system so the packets don't get dropped while multiple applications are being deployed, and it basically communicates with the orchestrator. Okay, so now we know that where does CloudCenter fits in the big scheme of things. What are the key components of the CloudCenter? Now let's have a quick look into what this use case is about. So the goal of this Appnote is to demonstrate how an application architect benefits from CloudCenter app deployment in a virtual ASA secured environment in AWS. In particular, it highlights how repetitive virtual ASA operational tasks requiring a network security admin change can now be integrated into CloudCenter app deployment automation. Whenever a new VM is deployed using CloudCenter, the new VM uses Python and shell scripts to create an ACL on the virtual ASA to allow the VM to access any other services, internet, database, SSH to allow remote access, whatever the case is. Yeah, so at this point, we will get into the nuts and bolts and more details around the use case, how we're going to implement it. There are two things. There's basically 8 different steps, and then there are multiple sub steps on each of those 8 steps, and we'll review some pieces of that and remember that this whole uh, use case will be accompanied with a deployment guide. So for all the details, you'll see in that detailed deployment guide for the pieces which I'll skip. So don't worry about that. Just focus on some of the things which I'll cover, and then for the rest of the information, look into the detailed guide. Okay, so now we are going to show you some of the tasks, starting from task 1 to 3 in this section. The first task is as you know, that you'll have to have the CloudCenter software from Cisco. So you'll have to have the authority and right credentials to get that software. Once you're done with that, you'll basically launch the CentOS instances on AWS. Now here, there are a few things you'll have to do. You'll first have to create the security group and then launch the instances and then tie the security groups to the instances. And then you will basically add the public IP of CCO to the AWS CCM security group. And in the end, or task number 3, you will have to convert the Amazon private key to the PuTTY private key. Like in this example, we're using PuTTY, but of course you can use any other program. But the key thing to keep in mind that this private key is going to play a key role whenever you would want to initiate anything in AWS. You will have to use this key. So let me kind of show you the environment which we have built for this. So first of all, let me just go to the initial page. So I'm at once you log in, you'll come to this main dashboard. From here, I'll go to EC2. That's what we're using. And here, first of all, if you remember, I said you'll have to create the security group. So in our case, since we already have created this environment, you can see that I have 4 security groups running for the CloudCenter components, the CCM, CCO repo, and the Rabbit, and 1 for the ASAv. So now if I want to show you as an example that how would you create another security group? So let's say security group test, description testing, and then basically I'll go and create it. Oh, first of all, I'm going to add 3 rules to it. And the first one is going to be the SSH, and the source would be my IP. The second one would be HTTPS, my IP. And then I'm going to do 843, and the source would be basically custom, and the range, I know that what's the Amazon has ranges, so that's what I'm going to use, /24, and then I'm going to create this rule. Now at this point, once I have created this rule, you can see that it's right here. Now in order to see any of these rules, you can single click on that, and you can see the details about the rule itself. You can see like the group ID, the VPC ID, all of that stuff get assigned automatically by AWS. So now let's get into the second piece, which is basically initiating an instance. So again, when you go to the instances, you'll see that I have 5 instances already running, and you can see Rabbit, CCM, CCO, and repo. This is for my 4 components of the CloudCenter, and 1 is for the ASAv. So now if you look into, for instance, any of this, click on any of these, and you'll see down here all the details about that instance, including your public IP address which is assigned, and the private IP address which is assigned, and all the other details about any instance. Now let me show you that how would you create an instance. So let's say if I'll say launch an instance, I'll go to AWS Marketplace, I'll search for CentOS, and then basically I'll use the first one over here. And then for this example, I'm just going to use, let's say, a medium type, and then I'm going to go to configuration. And then in this particular case, I have a network which is default subnet right here. We're using US West -2A, for this example, and then we'll go to add storage. Now add storage, you may change it to what we are using in this one, general purpose SSD. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to go to basically review and launch. And I'll ignore this message. So here, basically, as you can see, these are all the details about that. And I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Now at this point, it's going to ask me to create a key, to select a key. And basically in this particular case, if you see this AWS CloudCenter 3, this is the key when I created and used PuTTY and converted it. So I'm just going to, for this example, I'll use it and I'll acknowledge it. And then all I'll basically have to do is launch the instance at this point. So once it's done, and I'm not going to launch it over here, but this is the whole process. So let's say cancel it, but go back and show you some of the, like for instance, the 5 instances. We have already looked into that, like this one right here, for instance. I want to show you basically some of the little bits. Like in this case, I used instance, which is the medium, it's running, and that's about it. So this is a simple process to how you're going to initiate an instance. So, and as I said, it's pretty repetitive, so you're going to repeat it for all the other components as well. Okay, at this point, we're going to install the C3 software on AWS CentOS instances. Now, these steps are very repetitive, so I'm going to show you one of the, for instance, the Cloud Center Manager, that what are you going to do. So I just did this for you, so I'm basically already in the AWS-CCM root, and if you can see, I made sure that these files are there, the CCM-installer response and core-installer, and then I went and basically made these executable, as you can see, and then I ran it. So this basically is successful. I was able to run it, and then right here, as you can see, I did the Java space dash jar for this particular jar file. And then at this point, what we are going to do that, I'll get into the wizard, okay, to show you how we're going to configure it. So I'm in the wizard, and I'll come to the server info. At the server info, I already did it, but I'm going to overwrite it and just kind of show you. So this is basically the public IP of the CCM, which is 34. This is what assigned to me by AWS. .44, and then basically I'll say OK over here, and I'll say save the changes, yes, sure, and I'll come over here and exit out of here, and I'll say exit. And do you want to restart the server? Sure, I'll say yes. And at this point, it's going to basically reboot and restart the server. So the idea is that you're going to repeat it for all the components listed over here. Okay, so now you're getting to the most exciting part of this project, which is basically creating some scripts. In task 6, what we're going to do, we're going to use Postman to create a REST request that creates an ACL on the interface of the virtual ASA to permit the newly deployed application to access any destination via TCP port 80. And we'll convert that REST request to a Python script. So for instance, let me show you like some of the tools you would need over here. One of those tools is Postman, and it's listed in the prerequisite section of the guide. So here is basically the REST request which we have created, and in the guide we have actually explained every line and variable of the REST request and the converted Python script in this case. So this is what we have created, the REST request now is going to be converted into a Python through the Postman, and once you kind of bring it on the notepad, and this is how the same REST request once it's converted into Python would look like. So again, for all the variables you see is are explained in the guide. So for instance, if I tell you, for instance, ASAv underscore IP, this right now, this variable over here is basically the private IP address of virtual ASA, which is assigned to me through the AWS, right? So like for instance, just to kind of for the sake of it, if I go over here, I go to the virtual ASA, and let's go over here just to prove that this is all live and we have done it. So you can see that, you know, right here, the private IP of the virtual ASA is 171.31.41.250, what you also saw in the Python script right here. Okay, so you'll see all the details are explained in basically the guide as well. So once you have done all of that stuff, we'll move into the next section or the next step from here. Okay, so after creating the Python script, now we're going to create a shell script. And basically, this shell script is going to retrieve the public and private IP addresses of the instance when it is launched from the CloudCenter manager and pass those IP addresses to the Python script. Now, keep in mind that when writing scripts, there are multiple ways to achieve the same goal, and everyone has their own style and preferences. So in our case, we have basically done, as you can see, two scripts. One is the shell script, one is the Python script, and another shell script to call this Python script. So let me quickly show you the script itself, and I am basically looking at this script over here. So if you can see right here on initially in line number 7, so this is where we are downloading the Python script, and then on line 10 in this section over here, we are basically installing the REST module, and then over here in this part of the code, we are basically retrieving the public and private IP addresses of the VM. Okay, and then over here, if you could see, we are running that Python script 2 times. We see this like this, the same Python script, we're running it 2 times. One is for the private IP addresses, one for the public IP addresses. So again, in the guide, we have explained all this stuff in detail, and when you're going to be creating your scripts, you can use it these 2 scripts as an example and make changes accordingly per your needs. Now, another thing to keep in mind that once you have created both of these scripts, now at this point, you know, you will basically move both of these scripts to the repo/scripts directory. At this point, I think we should be good with the scripts. Okay, so at this point, we're going to basically do one of the final things over here. We'll create the usage plan and contract, add a cloud, which in our case is AWS, and then finally, and most importantly, we're going to model and deploy the app profile in CloudCenter Manager. And let me show you, which I just did over here for you to demo it. And basically, if you can see right here, this is what I've, test 15. And if you could see, the time over here is at 5:03 on 7/26. And you can see the time on my screen as well. So I just did it like a few minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. And if you see right here, so this green, as you can see over here, it's been deployed. And over here, down here, you will see that it's basically this green dot over here also tells it it's been deployed successfully. Now, what is one of the most important thing over here that we're gonna check that these 2 public and private IP addresses which were assigned, if you can see .112 and .7, and we're going to go to the virtual ASA instance which I have already launched over here for you, that and see that these access lists have been created or not. So I'll do show access list, and you can see right here that basically if you see the public IP as 35.161.243.112 is right here for you, and then private IP 45.7 has been created. So I think we are all good, and we have successfully completed this demo. Okay, so this concludes this overview / demo for this use case, and we would like to thank Cisco for providing us this opportunity. And please remember that this video is going to be accompanied with the detailed guide, and at some point we will also do a webinar, scheduled webinar, where we will answer any more questions from the audience. Please check us out on the web, and let us know how we could help you for your data center deployment and integration needs in general, and specifically anything around CloudCenter as well. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to talking to you all in future. Thanks. Bye-bye.